Ladies and gentlemen, hello, and welcome once again to Change the Questions, a show where we take a question each episode and work on the leg until we lock in the figure four and make it submit. My name is Paul Laporte. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Mike Miner.
Does that even happen anymore? Does it work like that anymore?
Well, that's what we're going to be looking at, because the question we are going to be answering today is, how important is ring psychology?
Smooth transition.
Thank you. So, this actually came up because I saw a post involving the Young Bucks on social media, and one of the chief complaints...
the goddamn Young Bucks!
One of the chief complaints about the Young Bucks that people have is that they don't use any ring psychology, which I disagree with, but that made me think of how important ring psychology actually is. Now, of course, for those of you who kind of don't know the term, although I can't imagine you'd be watching this, listening to the show if you didn't, ring psychology is the idea of really kind of telling a specific story in a ring. Like, for the example I used at the beginning of the show, say you have a fast wrestler and you're working on the leg to weaken him up, so you want to set him up for a submission finisher,
and you don't want him to jump off the top rope onto you, so you take out the leg. It's just, does it make sense in the context of the story?
Right,
it's just...
Exactly. It's kind of a story within the overall story of the match that kind of sets the tone. And people complain that wrestlers like the Young Bucks and even promotions like Lucha Underground, they don't feature any sort of ring psychology and therefore are somehow an inferior product. What are your thoughts on this, Mr. Miner?
Well, psychology's needed. Collecting my thoughts here. There was a match a couple of months ago involving Kevin Owens where he hurt his leg. It was at the Royal Rumble. Hurt his leg, hurt his body. Comes out to the Royal Rumble match, hobbling. Nice. He looks like he's hurt. He's selling it. Has he done things in the past where he didn't sound like he should? Yeah, But that's a lot of talent now. But should psychology be emphasized more? I think it should. Do we need ring psychology? Of course, because that's what makes this whole crazy thing go round. If look at Owen Hart back in the day with his cast, and look at Orton, Bob Orton with his cast,
right.
Both of them with the cast. They were selling the hell out of that thing, and it made it more entertaining. We knew they were full of shit, but that's besides the point. Ring psychology is needed to make a more interesting story. I mean, without ring psychology, Andre and Hogan back at WrestleMania 3 probably wouldn't have gone over as well as it did. We've talked about that match in the past.
Okay, we've talked about that match in the past, but you ask average person on the street what they remember about that match, or you bring up that match to average person.
Big guys go crash, boom, body slam!
They remember Hulk Hogan slamming the Giant, and that's it. They don't remember any of the shit with Hulk Hogan kind of setting things up and the Giant kind of hurting himself and whatever. So psychology was used there, but that's the thing.
But you know what? To be fair, Hogan...
Okay.
He grinded through and he overcame the odds.
So here's the thing, is psychology... Can psychology add to a match? Certainly. However, is it so important that matches that don't, quote-unquote, feature it explicitly? First of all, I'll argue that the Young Bucks are a bad example, because here's the simple fact of the Young Bucks are... their psychology, their story that they're telling is that they are smarmy, goofball, coward heels who act like they're the coolest guys in the world, but really are dopes and will hurt themselves 90% of the time and cost themselves matches. They tell a story. They tell a very clear story in the ring. It's just a fact of, I guess, they're saying that they don't sell enough, which is kind of a different thing than psychology. And then basically you're saying, if you don't like the Young Bucks, then I guess you must have hated the Cruiserweights in the 90s, because it's the same fucking thing. Because it's a different thing. And that's the thing, is that this idea of ring psychology, it's kind of like, again, professional wrestling is not one thing. It is a medium for art. And there are, just like in the movies, there are movies that are more cerebral. There are movies like Deus Ex or The Danish Girl. These stories are really deep, rich with these stories tell a very specific thing, have a lot of thought put into them.
One of my favorites, Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane.
Beautiful, beautiful picture.
Then there are movies like
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Or the Avengers, even. Or Transformers, which are more about just these big, wild action scenes.
Ever.
Yes, no.
Put Transformers on the same level as Hot Tub Time Machine. Okay?
So
let's not go that
far.
So
it's a thing of, is it important in certain ways? Yes. In American-style wrestling, yes. I would say it is psychology because of the way stories are told. It is told as this sort of realistic sport where you have a guy facing a guy, and it's almost kind of meant to mimic like a boxing match or an MMA match or something like that, where you're supposed to believe that this is like real, legitimate athletic competition. But then you go down to Mexico, and it's basically just a live comic book. These guys are fighting each other, and Iron Man isn't always selling the leg when he took, when he takes a shot from Mandarin or from Thanos or whoever.
The Crimson Dynamo.
Yeah, it's not something
Titanium Man.
that is required. It helps, but I don't necessarily think it's something that you need, and it's something that's important for every single style of wrestling. I mean, look at a New Japan show.
Yeah, I was going there.
A New Japan show.
Oh my god!
Especially if you're watching a Tomohiro Ishii match or a Katsuyori Shibata match or anything with Togi Makabe. The match is, we're gonna hit each other a bunch until one of us falls over. That's a story that they're telling.
How's that psychology for you?
That's a story that they're telling. But then if you go back and look at the psychology of it, you go, oh, well, these guys just forearmed each other in the face 50 times. They should have been knocked out after 2. Like, oh, the psychology isn't any good. Like, it's a different thing, and I think psychology means something different than what people think it means. Psychology, people equate psychology with selling, and they're not the same thing.
No, psychology is needed in wrestling, no doubt, because what the hell? Like you said, it's it's not needed for every match, but it's certainly needed to be around to, at least for guys to sell their injuries like we just talked about. You don't need it, but...
Okay, so let's take a look at the...
you need to tell a story within the ring. I mean,
you remember the triple threat match?
There's different ways of telling a story.
Do you remember the triple threat match, second episode of Lucha Underground between Phoenix Pentagon Jr. and Drago? Okay.
Yeah.
With the office dive and everything like that.
Yeah.
You enjoyed that match?
Of course I enjoyed
What
that
was
match.
the story?
Oh my god.
That's what I'm saying. What was the story beyond three guys just beating each other up?
These guys performing in the ring. Flying around, that's what it is.
That's what I'm saying. So then by that definition, every single match has psychology, because that's what a match is.
Yeah, I think it's more along the lines of these guys actually,
Now, the thing is
like we talk about, these guys selling injuries. These guys actually,
Okay, and that's the thing, and this is where I think people the thing is, like, there wasn't a ton of selling in that match, but the thing is this is where people mistake psychology for selling, because there was psychology in that match, and the psychology of that match was these 3 guys, if you paid attention to the story beforehand, were brought in by Conan from Mexico, and they're looking to impress Dario Cueto. So they are willing to do any bonkers, crazy bullshit they possibly can to win the match and impress their potential boss. That is a story. That is quote-unquote psychology, and that's what I'm saying. That's kind of the psychology that the Young Bucks use. Just because they don't sell a ton in the ring because they have a high-flying style doesn't mean that they don't use psychology. But even if you don't have that, even if it's just some complete bonkers spot fest like Will Ospreay and Ricochet or something like that, there's still merit to that.
I just think people are looking for something logical. I think they want to look at something that makes sense. Luchadors fly around. Submission wrestlers crank on the legs, crank on the arms.
Right, and submission wrestlers,
make sure the guy doesn't walk right for the next
traditional
week and a half.
Psychology is much more important in a submission style match than it is in Lucha Libre, because guys need to run around
hardcore match. You want to make sure these guys are actually tough enough to take these chair shots, these cookie sheet shots, these take a pipe to the sternum. There's different levels of psychology, like we talked about, and it really varies from performer to performer. I mean,
yeah, like I said, the thing is, the psychology is basically just, to me, psychology means what story are they telling. And
Look at a match.
whether that story is defined in the ring or it's defined outside the ring, whether it's before the match or after the match, just about everything you see has some sort of psychology.
Look at the matches between Mysterio and Dean Malenko back in '96. You have Dean Malenko trying to work a leg. Mm-hmm. You got Rey Mysterio trying to, fly around.
Yeah, trying to outspeed him. Malenko's trying to shut him down. Yeah.
Different types of offense, different types of defense. They try to tell a story with that. And through their different types of offense and defense, you tell the story. Dean Malenko works a leg on Mysterio. Mysterio hobbles around. Like we mentioned earlier, he hobbles around. He can't jump the top rope. He can't springboard because his leg's bum. That's how you tell a story. That's just one way. There's many, many ways of telling
and that's
a story.
Exactly it. It's like I said, it's...
Look at the friggin' Inferno matches, for God's sake. The Undertaker trying to force Kane's face into the fire, and Kane trying to escape. Because he doesn't want to get set on fire. Like, it's
good psychology there.
Boy, who would want to get set on fire?
The other guy on fire. The other guy does not want to get set on fire.
It's very simple storytelling, but it's storytelling overall. It's something that gets into your mind. That well, look at him. He's trying his best not to get set on fire.
But
Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Shawn Michaels and Mankind. Where The Undertaker stops Shawn Michaels' fingers and he gets knocked into a table, and then you look at Mankind, he's thrown from the top through a freaking table, and it's like, what's the story behind that? Undertaker damn near killed his opponent. How's he going to come back from this?
Yeah, so like I said, I think, is psychology important? I think that's, the question is different than the one people are asking, which I think is selling important, and for that question...
Is it logical? What's going on?
For that question... I say sometimes.
Do things make sense? I think that's more of what people...
Also, it's also a thing of, you have to accept the context it's taken in. If you are watching, the King of the Trios in Chikara, which is effectively a luchador promotion, it's a Lucha Libre promotion, American Lucha Libre, you have to go in there, you shouldn't be going in there looking to see, how is, Dasher Hatfield, the human baseball, selling his back off of that body slam. That's not what you should... You kind of have to tilt your view of the story to whatever story that promotion's trying to tell.
Yeah, I mean, you can't watch WWE and then look at Lucha Underground and expect the same thing.
Right.
Because you got to adjust, You
have to adjust your expectations.
Yeah, exactly, because they're different, completely different beasts. New Japan, Lucha Underground, WWE, even NXT and WWE under the same banner.
And again, using the Young Bucks...
PWG, I missed the Human Tornado. Can I just mention that?
Is he not wrestling anymore?
I don't know. I haven't seen a match.
Using the Young Bucks analogy that kind of started this whole thing off, I think another one of the reasons why they're a bad example of this is because if you watch a Young Bucks match in New Japan and you watch a Young Bucks match in Chikara, they're kind of different. They change up their mannerisms, they change up even the way they do certain things, the way they interact with their opponent. It's different. Those guys are really smart, and if you're talking about, whether or not quote-unquote psychology is used, they put a lot of thought into their matches and the things they do. They aren't just like, oh, hey, I'm going to do a backflip here. So I think psychology, as far as storytelling goes, important, but it's a different thing than selling, and selling can be either very important or not important at all, depending on the promotion you're watching.
I think more than anything, what's more important than anything is if you connect with the crowd. If you find some way
all
to
of it is moot as long as the crowd's getting over. You could be selling the best you could, and if the crowd isn't appreciating it and not enjoying themselves, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. I mean, you can sell the life for... I mean, look at professional wrestling back in the 20s and 30s, and stuff we're never going to be able to watch. Plenty of ring psychology there, but
you'd rather pull your eyeballs out with your hands and try to watch
2-3 hour matches. There were people falling asleep in the crowd.
Yeah.
That's why we have the setup that we have today, where one guy says, you know what, I think we can make money on this together by setting this up, giving them a more exciting, more constrained kind of matchup with shorter time, and send them home happy.
And I think that's I think the best way to end this one is ultimately it's realistic doesn't always mean entertaining.
No, and
that's, I think, the best way you can put this whole discussion.
I mean, if it makes any sense, people want logic in an illogical platform.
Very well said.
Professional wrestling doesn't really make complete
No, it
sense.
doesn't make sense.
But you suspend your belief for a little while. You have fun with it. I've mentioned fun in the past plenty of times. You got to have fun with this.
Yep.
And as long as it makes some kind of sense, you're going to have people coming out. That's why, you look at today, people complain about Raw so much, they complain about WWE so much, because a lot of it doesn't make sense. If you have it make sense, then people are going to come. And
it needs to be consistent.
It needs to be consistent. That's where your psychology comes into play. If it makes sense, people are going to come around. If it doesn't make sense, people are going to go, why? Yeah. And then that's it. So psychology doesn't just work in the ring, it works all the way around.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for us. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Change the Questions. Please be sure to check out all of our other shows. On Mondays, we have Time Warp. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have this show, Change the Questions. On Wednesdays, we have Booking a Better Wrestler. And on Fridays, we have Let's Play TEW. Also, be sure to check out our webpage, changingtheqs.com. That is changingtheqs.com. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at the same handle, @changingtheqs. If you want to like us on Facebook, you can just search for Changing the Questions there. And if you want to send us a good old-fashioned email, you can do so, changingthequestions@gmail.com. That is going to wrap it up for this episode. For my partner, Mike Miner.
See you later, guys.
My name is Paul Laporte. We'll see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.